We are back. Another recording of 30 days of thoughts. You can see my copy on video is ripped apart just from use, falling apart totally. It gets harder and harder. Oh, that's funny. In the front of this copy is the Lightspeed insignia stamped in there. If you're not seeing this on video, uh, some burn marks on the book. It gets harder to do this every day. That's my experience so far. This is excerpt number 5. As hard as it is, it's proportionally rewarding, I believe, for myself, and I hope it is for you. Today we're going to be talking about the laws of man in 30 days of thought, the purpose is to read, to think, write, to develop, listen to hear what is unsaid, and speak to let go. I have my notes, my thoughts, and here we are. The laws of man hold no meaning but the meaning we infuse within them. The IV drip of purpose that's attached to every condition, constraint, and permission we abide by or rebel against. This purpose will empower us, or this purpose will devour us. The us are the common folk, you, me, our neighbors, and our friends. We are in this world together, and it is our duty to make amends with it. The laws of man hold no meaning except the individual meaning we place inside them. It's the prideful, the fearful, those full of anger and regret, the shameful, the guilty, and the apathetic civility that deem this necessary. The command of arbitrary laws bestowed on generations of men who were given no choice. The freedom to choose the state of their being is a right only our higher force has been granted the power to bestow. Regardless of faith, creed, or rank, this force we speak of signifies the beginning. The unwavering truths that we are born with free will, the will to decide, think, and act, regardless of law. These laws of man hold no meaning, but the fire we spark within them will perhaps be used to spark freedom. The laws of man should not hold weight over love, peace, and joy. The values that we are all gifted in some form are values to empower ourselves and to come to agreement with each other. Before we can create any law for anything, we must be present. Our decision to love versus hate, to take courage over pride, to choose to be calm over anger, etc., shows the weight of our laws and the label of our existence. This is me, my own pursuit of something more, something higher, right? Where I'm reading myself struggle in contradiction. That last sentence, practically, our decision to love versus hate, to take courage over pride, to choose to be calm over anger, shows the weight of our laws and the label of our existence. The weight of our laws and the label of existence. How our laws, one of the points I believe I'm making here or trying to figure out myself is, where do I fall in the culture? What difference can I make in my own life? What path can I forge for what level, what degree of responsibility falls on me? Is it the law that makes me, or is it my choice or interpretation, decision to abide by it that makes me? Or is it both? And in what order? This shows the weight of our laws. In the absence of laws, or the guardrails, in the absence of accountability, will I be responsible? That's what I'm trying to get at. In the absence of accountability, will I be responsible? My responsibility will reveal me, my current capacity for, as it relates to the ability to respond. So, for example, that last sentence, our decision to love versus hate, to take courage over pride, someone I feel has wronged me, do I wait for them to call me or do I call them? What capacity do I have to embrace that conflict, lean into that conflict, as opposed to avoid it, repress it, spend the rest of my life arguing for it, using their name in vain, you know? Or can I have the capacity to reconcile it? And in what capacity do I have to reconcile it? To take courage over pride. It's easy to be, it's natural. It's natural to be, I said easy, it's interesting. It's natural to be too proud to apologize, too proud to forgive. But at what cost? To choose to be calm over anger shows the weight of our laws and the label of our existence. That piece of labeling our existence, I have a quote I'll share by Dallas Willard. We don't believe something by merely saying we believe it, or even when we believe it. Or let me read that again. We don't believe something by merely saying we believe it, or even when we believe that we believe it, or even when we believe that we believe it. We believe something when we act as if it were true. When we act as if it were true. That makes me think of that Goethe quote about how easy it is to speak and think and how hard it is for our thoughts and our actions to be congruent. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but I think it's thinking is hard, acting is much harder. And to act in accordance with one's thinking is the hardest. Some thoughts. My first bullet here was I try to either stay away from absolutes or nitpick them, be aware of them for further dissection. So at that first sentence, actually, the laws of man hold no meaning, but the meaning we infuse within them. I mean, that's a pretty, so whenever I find myself, as an aside, just whenever I find myself speaking in absolutes, I like to look at, all right, well, how can I go deeper in that thought? Because there's a degree of psychological omnipotence in any absolute. Absolutes create or have utility. You draw a line in the sand. Now we can move forward somewhere together. All right, follow me. Let's go here. There's value to that. But I like to look more deeply. Well, what did I mean by the laws of man hold no meaning, but the meaning we infuse within them? I get part of what I'm getting at here is the call to my ability to respond. In the absence of accountability, how responsible am I capable of being? That adage of what you do when no one's looking, what I'm capable of doing when no one's looking. Do I get away with it? Or does my conscience know? How will that impact me and affect me? What will I do if I can get away with it? Now, another thought here is purpose, condition, constraint, and permission. Yeah, so the laws or rules, let's look at a business context. The process, the procedure, the key performance indicators, let's just they're all coming after intuition, after nuance, after chaos comes order. And there's an interaction between order and chaos. And in that interaction reveals the value system. There's going to inevitably be an interaction between the order that came after the chaos and the chaos that's relating to that or reacting to that new order. The process and the system, the metrics that we use to see to come to the conclusion, are we on track to achieve our goals, our outcomes? We have to constantly reevaluate and reinvent those in order to continually innovate. And how do we go about doing that? Our values are going to be tested in how we work together, how we cooperate. Are we competing with one another so much or to such a degree that we're unable to communicate with one another, within our organization, within our team meetings, within our day-to-day interaction, that we're actually undermining ourselves, saying we want to do the best for the customer, saying we want to do the best for each other and ourselves to bring value to the marketplace, but we're unable to even communicate and engage with one another effectively. It's not just the processes and the systems and the language and the narrative of the organization that will create that cohesion, that group cooperation. It's going to be the leadership and the leadership of each individual, the ability to respond to conflict. It's a revealing of the values. So it's like, don't underestimate how much you can undermine your culture as well as add to it. Don't underestimate that. Here's another thought. Laws are guardrails. Our characters define their meaning. Yeah, this is an overemphasis on the absolute to make a point about the importance and the value of the individual, the individual, right? Because there's a relationship between the individual and the group, constantly at odds with one another, intention with one another, and interacting with one another. And don't forget how much of an impact that you make amongst the group, whether constructively or deconstructively. Another thought: values are what values are what break versus free from ourselves. I can't even read my own handwriting. Values are what break us free from ourselves. Oh, that's what, values are what break us free from ourselves. I'm not even sure what I meant by that. Yeah, okay, here. If something that is said or done in my presence leads me to react in a way that I'd have shame about after, a part of that I may not be, if it's so deep, I may not be able to actually stop myself from reacting. If it's like the depth of that conflict is proportional to my ability to rise above and through it. So what burden does that place on my neighbor, on the people around me? Well, if they're unable to forgive me and love me, how do I get out of that purgatory? So I think of it myself. If I'm unable to love through, work through the reactions, the conflicts, the hate maybe of my counterpart, and it's beyond their will based on the depth of the pain, the circumstance, I can reset their clock and pull them out of that purgatory with forgiveness, with working through my own reaction to their reaction. So something that was done or said by me that led to them to respond in a way the darkest, maybe I can pull them out of that. And when I'm down, they'll pull me out of that. And this idea that the equalizer to that paradox is love. The equalizer to that paradox, because if I'm unable to rise above my impulse, because I'm at the limit of the strength that I have as an aware, emotionally mature, knowledgeable individual. I'm at the very limits of that. I'm going to be relying on my counterpart to pull me out of that. I'm not going to get out of that. Now, at the same time, I'm thinking that every interaction that I'm going through in my life, this is why I'm pro apologies and pro meeting with my enemies and forgiving the people that I believe I've got issue with. They may not know I still have issue with them. So I'm going to bring that to their attention so that way I have an opportunity to live my values, because I may be making all that up. They didn't mean what they said. we have to have a conversation. We have to have a dialogue. By doing that, I now am challenged in my values to live and interact through those. And they have an opportunity to defend themselves, right? Innocent to be proven guilty. There's a guilty before proven innocent if I'm unwilling to meet with the people that I have issue with. And it works both ways. And so if I think the way to break that paradox is to be willing to love one's enemy. Because in the moment when someone is an enemy to you now, in word or action, deed, what have you, to be able to work through that and give them an opportunity to come out of whatever led them to act that way or react that way, is an opportunity for me to grow as well as them. And I'm sure is that gonna benefit from that if other people around me are not gonna throw me to the side of the, get rid of me and abandon me from the culture, put me in the the extreme version of this would be people that have done evil deeds, right? There's prisons. That's one of the ways we reconcile this paradox of reaction to stimulus. People do things that are evil. And so there's consequences. They pay with their time and they pay with their time, they pay with their space. Time is like their culture, their reputation, their character, how the world views them. Their space is the confinement in the four walls or what have you, right? Separated from the culture. They pay with everything, separated from the culture. There's no redemption in the culture. It's not a redemption it's not a it that's an extreme example to prove the point of like day-to-day interactions. We can avoid the conflict, avoid getting to the root cause of the issue, to reconcile the conversation, the disagreement. And how many people do we put in prison of our minds? How many people do we put in prison of our minds and of our proximity? We'll just move on from that relationship. We won't explore it anymore. And what are the costs of that? I'm not making an argument that we have to. It's like the beginning of a game when we're born and all the people we ever meet. In some sense, some interesting sense, all the people we ever meet are the people we're playing the game with. I wonder what my score is at the end of the game of each interaction. If each interaction was judged with a score from 0 to 10, how many zeros have I collected? And all the people I ever meet in my life and interact with my life, how many zeros have I collected? How many ones? How many twos? How many tens? How many negative tens and positive 20s? No, but like how many and what's the average score? Did I graduate with a 2, with a 7, with a 10? That's whatever that number is of each interaction with each person in the entirety of my existence. There'll be a score of my values in real time. Now, why does that even matter as a thought experiment? Well, a consequence of having a low score would be, how long do we have? I think I'm going to end this conversation, but I think the consequence would be there's a connection to meaning, I think. If it's a business, like in a business context, the more people that stay with a company for longer, let's say you start a company and it becomes 30 years old. The more of the tenured people that continue to grow, continue to evolve, it was just like a country. There's upward mobility. You start poor and you become wealthy. The changes, the dynamics of your generations, it all happens within one country. Now you're a proud American as a third generation ... that their parents came over from another culture and built everything here. And now you're ready to defend the culture because of your parents changing the dynamic of your history. Same thing with like someone, works with a company over the whole tenure of the more people that are with that company for the longer period of time that have grown through it and built meaningful lives through it, the more trust there'll be. If their competence is high and the trust has a relationship with the tenure of the relationship, it's constantly renewed. There's constantly rituals that renew it, just like any marriage, a date night, right? And children, there's more and more. It builds the love, which is the trust to make decisions quickly and innovate and compete against the competition. There's a connection there with the time of the relationship, the longevity of it, how the relationship reveals itself. And the same thing with the business, with the people that work within it, and the more that are there, the tenure. Now, within that, not everyone is going to stay the whole time. Not every relationship in our life is going to stay the whole time. But how the relationships come to an end in a space-time context, like in physical reality, I think has a significant impact on the journey of the individual. And I'm trying to think through that and for my own life, and hopefully you can continue coming along with me here. 30 days of thought. Here's the laws of man. There was one more thought that I'm not going to share, and we'll see you next time on the 30 days of thought. Read to think, write to develop, listen to hear what is unsaid, speak to let go. I should add, I keep saying listen to hear what is unsaid. That has nothing to do with 30 days of thought, because it was read, write, speak. And from doing the podcast and listening to so many people, I realized how poor of a listener I've been and am. So that's where that came from. After writing 30 days of thought, actually doing 30 days of thought first few times, writing, watching, putting it out there, and doing the podcast. When I listen to hear what's unsaid, oh, that's a great idea. That's helpful. That's helping me. And it's helped heal relationships that I've had, that have been broken within my life, that I think have a significant relationship, or consequential. There are consequences for unhealed relationships, because when I have power, when I can get away with things, that's where I'm going to need love.